What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. New gym, new toys installment 3. This will probably be the third one. This is my new push session that we're going to be going over today. This is my push A training programming. My push B training programming gets done at a different gym. So push B will not be an episode of this little series, but I did want to go over push A. If you guys have been following me for a long time, push A is the workout where I used to do the Life Fitness incline press and the weighted dips. To be honest, a lot of the stuff that I do in this workout is very, very similar. The gym that I am training at now is in the same company as the gym that closed earlier, and so they have a lot of equipment that is very similar between the two. For example, here, the standing cuffed lateral raise is the exact same cable station and the exact same exercise that I was doing as my first exercise on push A at my old gym. So there isn't really tons that is changing. I will point out the stuff that changes as always. But as far as the actual programming, may be strange to some of you guys as to why I'm starting this off with a shoulder exercise instead of getting into my main compound exercise. And if you have made it to this point in the series, then you'll probably be familiar with the things that I talked about on my leg sessions and how I like to do some isolation work before I like to get into a lot of my compound work. As of late on my push sessions, I have been dealing with some shoulder issues on my right side. I've been doing some mobility work that I learned from Ben Patrick, the knees over toes guy. You can hear more about him in the Legs A video that I made, the second installment of the series. I kind of talked about how I've been taking a lot of his stuff and applying it. Well, I've been applying some of his stuff to my shoulders as well, and I do feel like I am making progress on it. But I do like to do some shoulder isolation work before I get into my presses. Not only because I feel like it doesn't negatively impact my presses, but I also feel like moving my shoulders and getting blood in my shoulders and the musculature around my shoulder girdle helps me feel mentally and physically safer when I get into the press. And obviously, when I'm dealing with an injury, that is something that is very, very important to me. So I'll typically always start off my push sessions with a rear delt exercise and a side delt exercise. The order that I do those in largely depends on what is available. On this particular day, the rear delt exercise that I used was taken, so I just got right into the standing cuffed lateral here, which is what you are watching. The setup for this standing cuffed lateral mimics the dumbbell lateral raise in the sense that tension is the highest at the peak contraction, and that's exactly why you see me doing a 3-count pause on the first set there. After the first side delt exercise, I get into my rear delt exercise. In this case, this is a rear delt pull down. So I posted some clips of this exercise on TikTok, and it spurred some conversation in the comments. A lot of people thinking that this is a lat exercise or a tricep exercise. And honestly, that's not the case at all. I'm not saying that those muscles aren't involved at some point. Obviously, with the humerus doing what the humerus is doing, those muscles are going to be involved to some degree. But the vast majority of the tension that I feel on this particular exercise, I feel in the rear delt. And that comes down to the way that I am executing this exercise as well as the setup. So if you guys rewind to the beginning of this clip, or I guess just wait till the beginning of the next set, you'll notice that I keep my scapula completely depressed throughout the entire range of motion of this exercise. I kind of start off the exercise by doing some full range of motion, scapular protractions and retractions, and just kind of trying to feel my scapula and get my scapula kind of warmed up and activated. But when I am ready to start the set, I will actually retract and slightly depress my scapula, and I will keep them locked in place like that during the course of the entire set. And this is obviously going to remove a lot of the upper back musculature, which surrounds the rear delt musculature. And by trying to limit those muscles as much as you can, I can shift tension into the rear delt. Here you see me doing a protraction, and then I get into a retraction, and I'll watch my scapulas throughout the course of this entire set. You'll notice that they never move open into that full protraction. They stay locked down in place the whole time. I'm also kind of pulling I would say towards my chin, kind of towards my face area. This particular machine that you're seeing me use is the hoist Omni pull down, I think they call it. It's just the hoist pull down that has a ton of different grips on it. I actually think it's fucking awesome, not only for training the upper back, but for this particular exercise as well. But just the way that the handles naturally arc, pull towards my face. You can do this exercise with a straight bar on a cable stack. I did it for years. This particular gym just happens to actually have a pull down machine that seems to fit it pretty good. But for you guys that are watching that may want to implement an exercise like this, you don't need to have a fancy machine like this. You can do this with a straight bar, the traditional lat pull down bar. I do think that it works a little bit better if you have the availability to have something that kind of allows your wrist to swivel a little bit more. I personally found that with the straight bar, my elbows were kind of getting beat up over some time, but it was a long time ago that I was doing them, and obviously I probably wasn't doing them with the same level of intent and execution as I'm doing now, so that may be a completely different story. By this point, I've got my shoulders and everything pretty warmed up, and it's time to press and get into the meat and potatoes exercises. So on the previous Push A programming, I was using the Life Fitness Incline Press, which I really, really liked a lot. What you see me using here is the Cybex Incline Press. Couple of things to mention about this press. First of all, I don't know if I personally would really consider it much of an incline press. I really feel like the way that the arms kind of align with my pecs and the way that the handles converge kind of make it more of like a flat press. But this is the only incline press that they have at this gym, unfortunately, and so I have kind of just gotten stuck in with it. I absolutely love the press. The contraction that it gets is absolutely awesome, and it has a very similar resistance profile to the Life Fitness and Hammer Strength models in the sense that it's heavy in the shortened position. And so I really, really enjoy that for this particular training session that I do. I just don't know if I can really consider it an incline press. Nevertheless, it is a very, very good exercise, and I am a fan of it. I didn't really care for it at the beginning, but same as the hoist adductor, it's kind of grown on me the more time that I've been able to put into this. As usual, here you see me going through my warm-up procedure, so as the weight goes up, the reps come down, just preserving all of my energy for the working sets. Which are the sets that really matter. I've talked about this a bunch, but your warm-up sets aren't really doing anything for stimulating hypertrophy. In order for a set to be sufficient enough to stimulate hypertrophy, it has to be to a close proximity of failure. And as you can clearly see, I'm not taking any of these sets anywhere even remotely close to failure. And so the stimulus in the warm-up sets is not an adequate enough stimulus in order to actually trigger any amount of growth or hypertrophy. And because of that, I try to keep the total amount of reps that I do in my warm-ups as low as possible so that I can save as much energy as possible for the working sets so that I can put as much effort as possible into the sets that actually matter. What I have been doing on this particular exercise as of late is hitting both of my sets with the same weight. So you'll see that this first set here is 330, or the barbell equivalent of 330. By the way, I have gotten some shit from that on TikTok before, but the only reason why I log it as that is because, as you see, there's 3 plates per side, and then that's a 5 and a 2.5. And if you were to take these weights and put them on a barbell with 3 plates per side, a 5 and a 2.5, that's 330 pounds. I am very aware that this is not 330 pounds, but I just log it as 330 because that is very easy for me to remember. When I look at my logbook and I read 330, I think 3 plates per side, a 5, and a 2.5. I just picture 330 on a barbell, and that's what I put on the machine. So again, I'm very aware that it isn't actually 330 pounds. That is just how I log it, and that's why I use the quotations there. Most people will probably think that's pretty obvious, but there's always one person who's got something smart to say, so I just feel the need to address that. Anyways, both of my sets with the same weight, I kind of got sidetracked there, but you'll see that I kind of hit my first set in somewhere between the 8 to 10 rep range is typically where it has been falling, and then the second set, naturally, the reps will decrease. I just really have been enjoying doing that lately. I don't really have a reason as to why I think it's better or anything. It's just something that feels really good on this particular exercise, and I'm able to progress week after week very, very easily. As you can see, I added 5 pounds. Last week I did 325 for 8 and then 325 for 6, and today I did 330 for 8 and 6. So that's 5 pounds up on both sets for the same amount of reps. That's a great run of progression there, so I just don't really have any need to change it. I forgot to film my warm-ups for the weighted dips, but I did a warm-up with body weight, and then I did a warm-up with a 25-pound plate, and then I did my first working set with a 45-pound plate and hit it for 6 reps, and then I decided to do the 45 and the 25 for a 70-pound weighted dip, and I got a little overzealous with this today. Last week I hit 70 pounds for the first time, and I got 3 reps. And so today I was thinking that maybe I would get 4, but it actually backfired on me, and I lost half a rep. I only got 2.5. I was about 3 pounds lighter in body weight during this session than I was the last time that I did it, so that could have something to do with it. But in hindsight, I probably should have just done 45 again for the second set, or reduce the weight with the 25 and try to hit something for higher reps. But I'm never going to be upset at myself for trying to push the envelope. But in hindsight, I kind of bit off a little bit more than I could chew on that today. The lying cuff lateral that you're seeing here is a new exercise for me. Previous to doing this, I was doing a single arm cuffed lateral. The only real issue with that is that I also do a single arm cuffed lateral on push B, and I try not to do the same exercise on both of my training sessions if I can avoid it. And so I've kind of been looking for a new lateral raise variation to do on this particular workout that was more lengthened loaded. And today I just happened to, this is actually the same cable station that I do my standing cuffed laterals on. So I just happened to be walking by that, and I thought to myself, I wonder if I lay on the ground, like, will these cables align in a way that I can create overload and tension in the lengthened position? And I kind of messed around with it and crossed the cables, and I realized, man, this is actually pretty decent. So I decided to run with this today. I'm not sure if I'll be keeping it in permanently, but I honestly probably will, just simply for the fact that I want something different on this workout than what I do on push B. I do 2 lateral raise variations on each push workout. The first one is always going to be something that overloads in the shortened position. So on this day, it was the standing cuffed lateral that you saw, and then on my other workout, it's a machine lateral, the Cybex machine lateral that overloads in the shortened. But I could also do a dumbbell lateral here. You guys could also do a dumbbell lateral there, just something that overloads in the shortened. And then I like to do something that overloads in the lengthened for the second one. And like I said, I was doing the single arm cuffed lateral on both of my push days, and I kind of just wanted to have some variation there instead of doing the same exercise multiple times. So I probably will just keep this in just for variety's sake. After I do the lying lateral, I go directly next door to the cable stack right next to it, and I do the seated cable fly. First things first, I had sweat on the lens, so I apologize for that, but hey, I guess you could say that's the true definition of a meathead, right? I'm working so hard that I got sweat all over my phone. We'll go with that. But you can still kind of make out what is going on here. The second set will obviously be a lot clearer, but seated cable fly, not really a whole lot to note here. I really prefer a seated cable fly variation to the standing ones, purely for stability's sake. Anytime that you can sit down and actually brace your back and your hips and your feet into the ground and actually create stability and counterforce, you're always going to be able to have more force output through the muscle and just be able to recruit more muscle fibers per set that way. So I would always recommend that. Fortunately, this gym has a cable station that is kind of made for this, but if you don't train in a gym that has very good equipment like this, then you can obviously always wheel over a bench to your cable stack, and you can kind of mimic that. And that's always going to be the way that I would recommend you go about doing a cable fly. This gym does have a couple pec decks. Honestly, I haven't used either of them, and I just immediately saw this cable fly and just went right for it. I would almost always pick a cable fly over a pec deck if I had the choice, just simply because the cable fly is a lot more like flexible and movable. The pec decks, they have fixed handles and they kind of lock you into one way that you move, and you can't really be as flexible as you can with a cable station, and the nylon D handles just obviously as freely as those move into space. The past couple of weeks I have been reducing the weight on my second set and going for another set that was roughly the same amount of reps, but I felt really good today, so I decided to do my second set with the same weight that I did my first one, knowing that the reps would decrease. They dropped from 9 in the first set to 5 on the second set. So I'll just stick with this weight again for the next rotation and try to beat reps across both sets. And then once I eventually get to the point where I can do this weight for like 13 reps or more on the first set, then I will bump it up to the next cable stack. But until then, I'll just be sticking with this weight across both sets and trying to increase the reps that I'm getting. Very similarly to how I have been doing the chest presses earlier that I mentioned, if you guys were paying attention there. And then the final exercise that I do is a machine dip. This is a hoist model, as you can see it, just moving me all around like a recliner. May seem a little redundant to do 2 dips in the same exercise, but in the same workout. But honestly, the loading on this is quite a bit different. The tension kind of picks up a bit more towards the shortened position, which is the opposite of the weighted dip. The weighted dip is very heavy in the lengthen and kind of drops off towards the lockout, and I feel like this is slightly different. And also, you'll be able to see on the second set, I get a front-facing angle. The way that this machine's handles stack my hand, wrist, elbow, and shoulder is absolutely picture perfect. That's the only way that I can describe it. I'm sure that you guys can see here when I'm in the stretch of this dip, like how much movement I'm getting in my elbows just to be able to recruit my triceps. I mean, look at this right here. You guys could pause the video right here and draw a straight line from my shoulder down to my elbow, down to my wrist, down to the handles of this machine. It's just absolutely perfect alignment for me to lock in and squeeze absolutely everything out of the triceps that I have left. And the resistance profile is different. Even though it is the same motor pattern of doing a dip, I do feel like it loads the musculature in a different angle and with a different resistance profile. And I'm able to progress both of the exercises, so there's no real reason for me to stop. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. Any questions, let me know, and take care of yourselves.